So in this video, we're going to be talking about setting up your laser in such a way that it's going to make engraving and cutting your items so much easier. Now, I'm fairly new to the laser game, and I found this video that kind of described this setup, but I'm just going to add just a little bit more to it here. So, so what we have is we have some painter's tape that I've applied to my honeycomb here. Okay, now you can see over here on the left how it's not perfect angle, because you could see the honeycomb peeking out through here, but not over here. So that painter's tape is not perfectly square to the honeycomb. And so the purpose of this painter's tape is we're going to use our laser to cut our tape so it is perfectly square. And then we're going to use this device right here, and we're going to align that to the painter's tape. And then once this is perfectly square, then any item, even if it's round, we've got our patches we can place, boom, right in that corner. We can do our pencil jig, boom, right in that corner. Anything that we put there, we can get a perfect alignment to the blank. So in this case, we're going to be able to see when we do our laser engraving on this blank, we're going to be able to see how square to the blank it is. And, you know, to find the center of this circle, and, you know, think about everything that we burn, keychains, pencils, it doesn't matter what it is. Having a reference point is so key to getting everything lined up. Now, that's only part of the issue. The other issue that we have to think about is the artwork and the various settings in Lightburn that will enable us to make sure what we're doing here, it all lines up. Okay, so it is a bit of a process, but it's really, really simple once you understand all the steps involved. So, so at any rate, most of what I'm doing is a one-off thing. This little plaque I'm doing to go with a hat rack. Now, the customer didn't order this, but I wanted to do this as a freebie because it's fairly quick, fairly easy, and you know, they may decide to order laser products down the road. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give away a lot of laser engraved stuff right now, because I'd like to buy a big CO2 laser. But I can't really justify doing that right now, spending, you know, $4,000 or $5,000 at least on a CO2 laser, because I don't really have the call for the business right now. So I'm gonna just use this little guy for right now and do my little one-offs, or, you know, like the patches, I could do 10 or 12 of those at a time, real simple, making hats and things. So there's all kinds of things we could do with this, but from a production standpoint, we definitely want that CO2 laser. So let me go ahead and show you what we're going to do in Lightburn, okay? Show you what we're going to do there, and then, you know, we'll just kind of progress here. All right, so there's a few things that we have to know and understand about Lightburn. So what I have here is I have a file that it just has two lines, L-shaped lines. And you can see we have this little green dot here in the corner. Okay, that is our job origin point, okay, for this artwork. Is right there at that corner. And so if we go over here to the laser tab, you can see that we're using the current position option. And to me, when you're starting out, that's the easiest, because it's going to start at this corner. You see right here, it says job origin is in that top corner. So everything is measured off that, okay? So everything's measured off of that, and it's going to use the current position of the laser, okay? So to me, that makes it really, really easy, okay? So over here on the Move tab, I have my laser positioned, so I do want to go ahead and hit the Set Origin, and that will set the origin point. If I ever got to go back to this green dot after the laser moves, I can use that option to go back to the origin. okay? And then there's also this option, set finish position, okay? Now, that's going to set the finish position. And so what I did is you go ahead and hit the set origin point now, okay? That's gonna set the green dot. And then you can see here where I said distance, and then all I did is push the up arrow. That's gonna move the laser up exactly 5 inches, and then that's where I'm gonna set the finish position. And so what that will do is that will then move the laser out of our way at the completion of our burn so we can place our new blank and so forth, okay? This will all make more sense when we actually see the laser go. So let's go over to the laser tab. Let's go ahead and fire up that laser. It's going to tell us always cut might be out of bounds, okay? And that's because of we're using that current position option and some other factors, but because we know what we're cutting, this is perfectly fine. So we're just gonna say yes, go ahead and do its thing. And we're gonna go ahead and cut. Now for my JTAG 14 watt laser, I have it set to a speed of 100 and power of 80, but I do have 2 passes. And that is not because the tape doesn't cut in 1 pass, but it's got a little bit of adhesive. And I found that when you do 2 passes, it cuts through that adhesive a little bit better. That's the only reason I do that. All right. So now that we've gone to this point, let's pop over to the laser and see if it did what we expected it to do. Well, yes and no, because this is supposed to be 5 inches back and it's not. So I'm not exactly sure why that is that way, but it did cut. So let's go back over to Lightburn. Let's move the laser out of the way because we need it out of our way, and then we'll go ahead and see how that tape did. All right, so now the laser is out of our way, and we're just gonna come in here, and I just used an Allen key because it was handy, and we're gonna see it did cut. See that? So it did cut like we expected it to. Let's go in here. And there we go. Okay? So now we know that this tape is now square to the laser. Now, you can see here how much honeycomb is showing. It's pretty uniform all the way across. But don't use that as a real indicator because while I did place this so it was square to the laser, this could not be placed perfectly square to the laser. And so you may not see this tape being perfectly square to the honeycomb. But as long as we don't move that honeycomb, we know that that is now squared up. So now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take this and we're gonna line it up to that and tape it down, and that point will now be saved, that very corner point. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that real quick, and I'll show you what that looks like. So there we go. Now this is square, everything's lined up. Now you don't have to go crazy with the tape like I did, but that's all you do. Just tape that down to the honeycomb. Really, really super simple, okay? So now when we go to engrave our blank, boom, that's all we got to do. Position our blank. It's going to hit over here to the left. It's going to hit up top. And I'm just going to visually set this to what I think is horizontal. And now I know when I go to cut this, it's going to be engraving absolutely center of my blank. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and set up my artwork. I do have to move this up a little bit because of the thickness of my blank here, and we have to bring this back forward. I moved it back 5 inches, so I have to bring it forward 5 inches, and then I have to raise it a little bit to clear my blank here, which is 5/8 of an inch thick. So let me go ahead and do that, set up the artwork, and then we'll go ahead and engrave this and see how good we do as far as getting it dead center of our blank. All right, before we go laser engrave this, let's talk a little bit about the artwork. So I have a circle that is exactly 5 inches. You can see here the width and height is exactly 5 inches. Okay, and that's what our blank is in the laser. But notice where the job origin is. It's right at that top edge of the circle and left edge of the circle. So the laser is going to come over and go ahead and do a fill on this portion. So this margin should be spot on with our blank because our blank is in perfect position. And you can see over here that we do not have the output going on the black line. So it's just the fill. Okay, I'm using a speed of 100 and the power of 80. Let's double check something. 200 lines per inch, okay, I'm happy with that. That should give us a real nice burn. We are just going to do a single pass on it. So let's go ahead. I did change my Z height for the thickness of our material. And then we're going to go ahead and burn. And away goes the laser, okay? So now we just kind of have to sit around and wait, it appears, for 25 minutes for this to go ahead and burn into our board. And when it's complete, I'm going to show you the finished result to see if it's perfectly centered on our blank. Okay, so I'll be back and show you what it looks like when it finishes burning the design. All right, so that just finished up, and as you can see, if you look at the margins, it is absolutely dead center or very, 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 very close to it. Like I could get my calipers out and really look at those margins, but I'm pretty happy with that. That looks close enough to dead center to me. So now what we want to do is just kind of re-emphasize this process and use a abnormal size blank. We're going to do a keychain and we're going to kind of line things up the same way, but you can see that even with the little keychain that we're going to do, it's an odd shape. They're hard to line up unless we have a setup like this. So I'm going to go ahead and get that keychain, get the artwork set up, and then we'll show you what that looks like. So you can see what I did there. I just cut a little piece off the bottom, and then I've just added that little base to it just for a little extra something something. You can see there is our hat rack. And then we'll just give the little plaque. It's a little gift to go along with it. Alright, so for our next project, we're going to be doing a little leatherette patch, and I've just bumped it up there to the corner, so we're touching the left and we're touching the top here. And what I've done is I've used my calipers, and I've measured the top, or the height and the width. Now the height comes in at 1.95, and the width comes in at 3 inches. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set up the artwork here in Lightburn, and then we'll go ahead and burn the patch and see how that works. Now we are going to have to adjust our Z on the laser, but we'll do that as well, and then we'll see how that centers up on our patch. So here is our little flag design that we're going to be using, and the main thing I want to point out here is if we go to the laser tab, you can see we're using current position, that top position, and then right there, that's the origin. That's the corner of our little bracket there in the laser. And so the height of this object is 1.95 because that's what I calipered, and then it's 3 wide. Again, because that's what the caliper said. Okay, so this should go ahead and stitch dead center. So, I say stitch, but it should go ahead and laser engrave dead center of our patch. So let's go ahead and give it a whirl. So there you go, there's our patch. And the one thing that, of course, we're looking at is where our left to right alignment, our top to bottom alignment could be off just a touch, and that could be more or less my my caliper, more so, you know, maybe I didn't have it set just right, and because it looks like it's off maybe just like 1 or 2 millimeters top to bottom, but certainly acceptable. But left to right, you can see we're really dead on there. So very, very satisfied there. Now what I want to do is I want to go to a key fob, which will be completely different shape, and try that. So there is the key fob, and you can see we're touching the left and we're touching the top. And now we want to see how that burns. Now I have used my caliper to determine that is 1.61 inches in diameter. I may make a tiny adjustment to the Z, just because I want to make sure that the shroud can go over our little button there, and then we'll go ahead and burn it and see what we get. Now, the one thing that we do have to do is we have to just kind of eyeball the up and down. But, you know, we could go through and make a specific jig to make sure it's nice and square, but I've gotten pretty good at making sure they're nice and square. So let's go ahead and try it and see what happens. So this is the key fob we're going to make, and this is the 1.61 diameter, but we're not outputting that. So we're just outputting our fill here. So we'll go ahead and run that job and see how it lines up with the key fob. Okay, so the key fob is complete, and we can see that the spacing left to right is nice and solid, and then the spacing from the edge to the bottom of the design is the same as the spacing left to right. So it really helps having that little template in place for any shape, and if you've got your artwork set up properly, then your engraving will be spot on every time. So I hope that helps you get things lined up, and just another way of doing something. Thanks for watching.